Hello space fans and collectors, I'm Jim Frangione and welcome back to another installment of Taking Up Space, the place where space history lives and where every artifact tells a story. If you're as passionate as I am about the history of spaceflight and collecting vintage artifacts and space age memorabilia, you're going to want to click on the subscribe button and notification bell down below so that you don't miss out on a single episode. Today's artifact is unique in that it comes directly from the Armstrong Family Collection. For those of you who may not know, many of the items belonging to Neil Armstrong and his family hit the auction block over the last couple of years, care of Heritage Auctions. In fact, as of the posting of this video, there is another Heritage auction of space artifacts with items from the collections of many of the pioneering astronauts, including Neil Armstrong, scheduled for this coming Friday, June 5th. If you'd like to take a look, I've included a link to Heritage Auctions in the comments down below. Obviously, anything to do with the first man to walk on the moon draws attention, and these auctions are no different. And while there were plenty of price tags well out of the range of mere mortals like me, the beauty of artifact hunting and collecting is that there are things to be found by collectors of pretty much all levels. The item I'm going to share with you today is no exception. While it's definitely on the lower end of the cost spectrum, it has a story to tell. And for what it is, for what it depicts, and certainly who it once belonged to, the narrative it offers could be viewed as downright fascinating. This souvenir card, which came from the Armstrong Family Collection, is postmarked April 22nd, 1964, the opening day of the New York World's Fair. On it, it depicts Neil Armstrong, who was on hand at the opening of the Space Park exhibit. Of all the things I could have bid on during this auction, why this one? Well, there are two reasons. One is what I think is kind of ironic. The other is a little bit more close to home, both figuratively and literally speaking. First, for the irony. On the card, the caption under the photo describes Neil Armstrong as being besieged by autograph seekers. Besieged, I like that word. I'm as intrigued by the use of that term as I am by the image itself. Keep in mind, in April of 1964, Neil Armstrong is not yet the first man on the moon. He has yet to fly with Dave Scott on Gemini 8. Heck, never mind Apollo, the first manned mission of the Gemini program is still 11 months away. Yet, he was besieged. I guess that could stand to reason. Coming just 5 months after the death of President Kennedy, this fair and its theme of peace through understanding was all about hope. As you can see from these vintage postcards, its hope looks more at home in the Eisenhower 1950s than it does on the precipice of the turbulence ahead for the 1960s. But nevertheless, that was the theme. And in early 1964, the only people more popular and hopeful than the astronauts were the Beatles. As for the irony that this artifact reveals, I have to think, man, if he only knew what was coming. It makes me wonder if he kept this all those years because it represented a harbinger of things that might come. Do you think he could have imagined what lay ahead of him from autograph seekers after he became first man on the moon? It makes me wonder if he ever looked upon this souvenir card and chuckled, or flashed that famous grin of his at the quaintness or naivety of it all. That's what I find so cool about this item. What do you think went through his mind when he looked at it? God only knows, but it's great to look at and take a guess. This item also speaks to me in a more personal way. If, like me, you grew up in and around the New York City area during the 1970s and 80s, you grew up in the shadow of the aging ruins of the 1964 World's Fairgrounds. The Unisphere and the remains of the New York State Pavilion were like Mount Olympus and the Parthenon if you ever found yourself cruising through Queens via the Grand Central Parkway on any given day. So too were the decaying hulks of the Gemini Titan and Mercury Atlas rockets at the Hall of Science, where the photo on this card was taken. They've been a part of my consciousness since I was a kid. As these pictures show, for a while they were in a sad state of repair. Today, Corona Park and those ruins have seen some restoration. The rocket park, minus the replica of the lower half of the Saturn V first stage, is now a part of a space-themed miniature golf course at the Hall of Science, making it a great place to take in some science and some sunshine. If you're in the area, I highly encourage you to check it out. So that's the artifact and that's the story. It tells a bit of an astronaut's life, it reminds me of home, and oh yeah, it once belonged to that astronaut, America's humble hero and first human on the moon, Neil Armstrong. That's it for this installment of Taking Up Space. Thank you again for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to let me know what you think in the comments section down below. In our next installment, we'll be highlighting an artifact that comes directly from one of America's first women in space. I hope to see you then. Until next time, citizen curators and space junkies, keep looking up and keep your eyes on the stars.